about the importance of relationships. In 1978, I was at the cocktail party with the senior vice president of McDonnell Douglas Aircraft. It was a division that made DC-10s. And he was telling me how airports in the future would be smaller. I said, why? He says that people are going to do less flying. I said, why? Now, this is before the internet, this is before cell phones. He says, because of teleconferencing. They aren't going to have to travel as much. Well, did that hold water? Every airport in the world today is under construction. And what kind of travel is that construction supporting? All business travel. The face-to-face has not died. People say, oh, with the internet age and the electronic. No, electronic communications works extremely well after you've got the face-to-face in. Now, as I heard this yesterday, getting people to come in, the lead thing is good. But after you get them in front of you, this takes over. Okay? And this is how you have to have a relationship or you can build repeat and referral business. Now, a couple of things. When the trust bond is established, people don't want to do business with anybody else. Now, I was talking to Stacy last night. If somebody could take her a microphone, that would be cool. She's sitting right back there. I'd like to have her tell me of an incidents about how trust trumped something she thought would never be trumped.
So what we were talking about last night is I have a standalone Chevy location, a very small town, coal mining town. And when I went up there to spend 3 days, my little granny, she's 89, 4'8", stopped in to see me. And Granny and Papa have been buying from this location since before I was born. And she walked in, and her sales guy knew how she had her coffee, asked about her mums. I didn't even know she had mums. So she's standing there, and Granny gets a brand new Tahoe every 3 years. She just pays for it, just, what have you. And she decided to tell not only all the customers in the showroom, but Rick, our manager, Mike, our other manager, and every sales guy in there, that when she came in next month to trade her Tahoe, it would be from JK, and she was sorry about my commission. Because JK had been so good to her for all these years, and when Papa died 6 months ago, Granny doesn't know how to pump gas, and she lives 30 minutes from me. So every Friday, JK gets off work, goes to Granny's, picks up her Tahoe, puts the gas in it, never makes her pay for her own gas. He refuses. So Granny has sent him pretty much everybody from the church. When Papa owned the companies, it was 5 underground mines, 2 surface mines, and 3 prep plants. And every company vehicle that company, which is now my dad's, bought, came from that one salesperson because of the way he treated my grandparents the very first time they bought a vehicle.
So what she's telling us is the key. So she'd rather buy from that guy she's been buying for a long time than from her own granddaughter, which I think is cool. I think that's interesting. Okay? So that's how powerful that stuff is. Okay? And the way you build relationships is you spend a lot of time focusing on them, asking them questions, and sitting back and letting it happen. Don't try to rush this part of it. Okay? And I remember one of the things I learned. I call this the human irony when you're building relationships, and it's kind of odd. Nobody wants to hear your story. You might as well save your breath. They just don't want to hear it. But those same exact people that don't want to hear your story, what are they dying to tell? Their story to someone who cares. And so the key on building relationships is back off and let them tell their story. Because they will tell their story, because people want to talk. Now, so the idea is not to talk about you. Now, I remember listening to Kevin yesterday. If we can bring Kevin the microphone, that would be cool. He was talking about, he had a customer that was very concerned that they had bad credit, and they were kind of embarrassed about it. And so Kevin told a story that was talking about him, and it looks like an exception to the rule, but in reality, Kevin was talking about them while telling his story. Kevin, you want to? Is it too loud?
Am I good?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, well, the whole concept of the story was to tell them a story about myself that they could relate to and allow them to feel comfortable because we had something in common. So when I was telling that story, I was really talking about them, like kind of how you would say, I have a friend that, but you're really talking about what their situation is, and they really opened up.
Okay, so in other words, he was talking about himself, but in a way that was relating to them. That's okay. That's a good way to do it. Did you say you put that in your emails as a template when you have those kind of people?
Yeah, I actually have I just wrote it, actually, Kelly could attest to it. I just physically sat down and wrote it as a template that I use. And it goes through the whole process of, if you're concerned about your credit, I understand, I was there too 10 years ago, and I tell the story. And then I tell them how a year later I refinanced, and then I tell them how when we bought my wife's last car, I got 2.19%. It's not to brag, but just to let you know that it can be done. Here's the steps on how to do it.
Okay, and that's talking about yourself in a way that they want to listen. And that's okay. That's okay. You know, along those same lines, a couple of weeks ago, I was at the supermarket in a parking lot, and a downtown person came up to me and needed $1.80 for bus fare. And he said, I really hate to do this. And I pulled a $5 bill out of my wallet and I gave it to him. I said, understand, I've been there myself. And you know, the guy just picked up his whole demeanor changed when he found out that I had been there myself. It kind of hurt for money. And so when you relate to them, it really helps a lot. Now let me just give you some examples about this relationship business. Came across a study in the San Francisco Chronicle. I don't read all this, but I'll just erase it anyway. It said, they talked about salespeople calling on first-time customers, people they've never talked to before. And they said it takes an average of 5 to 7 calls over a 6 to 9 month period of time before you get anywhere. Well, looking at this model here, why does it take 5 to 7 calls over 6 to 9 months on those kind of calls before you get anywhere? It's all about relationships, right? So in other words, you can't hope that this relationship thing goes away. It doesn't. We're dealing with human beings, and human beings interact through relationships. The stronger the relationship, the stronger the trust, okay? And I want to say most people quit after 2 calls. Why do they quit after 2 calls? I'm not getting anywhere. No, they don't understand this is a process. 5 to 7 on the average. Some take more, some take less. After 2 calls, all that means is you're on your way. You're just not there yet, okay? I came across another study where a guy was reflecting on his first year as a salesperson. And he worked for an electronics company. And he said, instead of doing what I learned in school, what my bosses told me to do, what my company training programs told me to do, which was make as many calls a day as I possibly could, he says, I got to know a small number of customers very, very well. And he says, in no time at all, it paid off really well for me, because at the end of his first year, he came in at 195% of his quota. Is that good? That's double expectations. So he says, when that came out, everybody in the company wanted to know, how did you do it? What's your secret? And he says, on a Friday afternoon, he got a phone call from the corporate VP back east saying, wow, what a wonderful job you did. I wish everybody in our company could do what you did, and on and on and on. Now, since the call is coming from the ivory tower, you've got to wait for the other shoe to drop, and it's going to drop, okay? He says, however, as good as a job you did, I noticed you averaged only 1.2 sales calls per day. Company average is 4.6. Just think what you could have done if you get your number of calls up to 4.6. Well, where'd this VP of sales miss the boat? What was this guy doing at 1.2?
Quality.
He was focusing on them. He was listening to them. And that, when you listen long enough, they'll tell you exactly what it's going to take to get their business. And he focused on that, 195% of his quota. So I say this is, I don't know, has anybody ever anything to do with the Brownies or Girl Scouts? Okay, my wife had a troop when my one daughter was young. They have a little song that they teach these girls right out of the gun that captures the essence of this process. And it goes like this. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. It's not that kind of a program. It goes, make new friends and keep the old. One is silver and the other is gold. Second verse goes, a circle is round, it has no end. That's how long I want to be your friend. Whoever wrote that song understood exactly how the sales process works. The reason that model is round is sales process is continuous and ongoing. You don't want to treat your customers like light switches. Turn them on when you want a favor, and then ignore them until you want another one. They don't like being treated like that. They like the continuous ongoing process where they know they're being appreciated. There's like one group of people that can get away with treating you like a light switch. And who do you suppose that is? Your kids. How can you tell when your kid's going to hit you up for something?
They're awake.
Yeah, they come up, they're nice, they do things without you ask. And as soon as you give them what they want, it's back to normal. When my daughter was 16, she's now in her early 30s, she said to my wife, so I go over here, she says, you know what? Dad is just like a bank teller machine. And my wife says, what do you mean? She said, well, you walk up to him and say something nice and he spits a 20 out at you. That's a bank teller machine. Well, kids can get away with it, but nobody else can, okay? Now, once the relationships are in place, now is when we talk about transacting the agreement. And the key here, the key strategy, is talk to them about what they want first. Solve their problem first. Because all they care about is getting their problem solved. Once their problem is solved, now they got all kinds of time to listen to what you have to say. So solve their problem first, and then show them how to get it. That's your win, and we're fine. I was consulting with a company called Hewlett-Packard, and I was in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, where they had a plant that manufactured, at the time, inkjet printers. And they were having problems with one of their suppliers from Korea, a company called Samsung. And what Samsung made for them was this component that stored the ink and sprayed the ink onto the page. The problem they were having with Samsung is that the deliveries were very erratic, and they were having a lot of downtime. And when they finally got the components to build the printer, when they shipped the printer to the customer, the part of the component that stored the ink exploded, and they had all these recalls. So they're very upset with Samsung. And so they showed me their plan and their slides, because this is Friday afternoon, and they were leaving Saturday morning to fly to Seoul, Korea to meet with Samsung, and what they're going to do is rip them a good one. Their slides all focused on how lousy of a supplier Samsung was, how they should be ashamed of themselves, and they were not worthy to be a supplier of a company like Hewlett-Packard. Now, is that what the other Samsung wants to hear? No, Asians in particular don't like being hollered at. I don't blame them. I don't like being hollered at either. So I said, that's not going to work. I asked these guys the question. I said, what do you want to do? You want to fix this problem, or do you want to vent your anger? You know what the answer was? They said, yes. I said, well, you can't do both, I said, you want to turn this thing around? They said, yeah. I said, well, that's not going to work. I said, here's what I would suggest. I said, when you get to Korea on Monday or Tuesday to the meeting, when you walk in that room, sitting at that conference room are going to be a bunch of men, and they're going to be sitting there like this. Why? Because they know they're going to get beat up. They read the emails, they feel the tone of the conversation on the phone, they know this is not going to be a pleasant thing. I said, so your first order of business is get those arms down. Well, how do we do that? I said, well, I'd open the conversation with something like this. We at Hewlett-Packard are not really happy with the way things are going right now. And we suspect you folks here at Samsung are not happy either. And we at Hewlett-Packard think it might be our fault, and we want to get your input on how to fix the situation. Now, what does that do? Sends a very clear message, we're not here to attack you. In fact, we think it might be our fault. Can you help us fix this? Well, these people were very angry at me, because you know why? It was 4:30 on Friday afternoon. In Puerto Rico, on Friday afternoon, everybody parties. Now they have to go back to the office and make new acetate slides, and they were not happy. Well, the next morning I saw them at the San Juan airport, and they were all smiles. They showed me their new slides in their briefcase. We're going to do exactly what I suggested. And when I went back the next time to Puerto Rico, Samsung had indeed fixed the problem for them. So again, talk to them about what they want first. All they want to know is you're not going to attack us. You send me that message, we're ready to work with you. Very simple, okay? And I'll give you other examples as we go on. Now, okay, so far so good. This is a sales transaction right here. Now, by the way, this is called the PRAM model, P-R-A-M, which is an acronym for the 4 steps: plans, relationships, agreements, and maintenance. Now, the maintenance step in the process that completes the circle is the easiest step to do. It's a step that requires the least amount of effort. It's the step that has the biggest single payoff associated with it, because guess what? It's the step that guarantees the repeat and referral business. But it's a step that almost no one does anything about, except for some really successful people and organizations, okay? So in this step, we're going to maintain 3 things. We're going to maintain the agreement to make sure promises turn to performance. We're going to maintain the relationship. What happens to a personal relationship if it's not maintained? It dies. And now you have to start all over with the trust thing, okay? And finally, I'll explain a little bit what maintaining the plan is. Now, there are 2 aspects to maintain the agreement. Number 1, make sure you hold up your end. Nothing diminishes commitment quicker than if it looks to the other person like you're not going to hold up your end, okay? Because that's the reason I did business with you. I trusted you. You're going to hold up your end. This is a non-issue for regular customers that you've been dealing with on a regular basis because they know who you are, just like Stacy's grandmother. I mean, she knows who this guy is. He's going to take care of her. Where this does become an issue is with new people you've not dealt with before, people you've not dealt with very often. What you want to do with these people is send them a very clear message early in the game that you are for real. Even if something as simple as saying, if they ask you for some information, you say, I'll get that to you as soon as possible. Get it to them sooner than they expect it, okay? I'll give you an example. I was working for a company called Shire Pharmaceuticals. That's not part of some other company. But at the time, one of the main products was Rogaine that grew hair on some people, okay? It was 70% success rate, all right? Which is still better than nothing. Well, anyway, this woman who was a territory sales rep was getting ready to make a call with her boss, the district manager, and they were to call on a doctor who had a medical clinic in downtown Los Angeles on the 12th floor of a high-rise office building. And to set the stage for this, doctors, by and large, absolutely detest pharmaceutical sales reps. And the reason is there are so many of them. They come in, they insult the doctor's intelligence, they're very young, they promise the doctor they're going to get them things, and then they don't follow through. And so the doctors don't even want to see these people. Well, the doctor that they wanted to see had made it very clear to his receptionist he did not want to see them. And so, okay, what do we do? Well, just then, the doctor came out of the examining area. And he says, look, he says, I got a woman in my room that would like a videotape on Rogaine. Do you have a videotape with you that I could give her? Well, they didn't have one in their possession right then. Well, he turned around and walked right back through the door they couldn't go through. So what do? Well, the woman has one in the trunk of her car, a videotape on how to use Rogaine. Now, that's down 12 floors across the street, 2 blocks down, and into a parking garage, 4 stories. She set off in her heels to retrieve that tape. Well, it took her a while. When she got back, her boss was standing outside the building. The woman that they wanted to see had left. But he noted what she was wearing and which way she went down the sidewalk. So he ran down the sidewalk, delivered this videotape on Rogaine, a gesture for which she was very appreciative. And then, are we done? If you want to really make some points with the doctor, what do you have to do next? She went back up to the clinic, wrote a detailed memo on what she had done delivering this videotape to this woman, handed it to the receptionist, and stapled her business card to it and told her to have a nice day. Now, you think that little gesture on her part had any payoff for her? 2 days later, her phone rang. Guess who it is? The doctor, the very doctor that under no circumstances would agree to see her. What's he want her to do now?
See her.
Wants to make an appointment to come in and see him, okay? So see how simple this stuff is? People are dying to do business with people they can trust. So seize the first available opportunity to show them that. And that's why Kevin's story about when he didn't have good credit, man, that resonated just like that. Turned everything around because now they knew that Kevin could be trusted and they could relate to him. The next thing is when somebody does go the extra mile for you, what do you have to do for them if you want them to do it over again? Somebody refers a couple of customers to you. What do you do?
Thank you.
You got to thank them in a way that is meaningful to whom? Them. Okay. What's your name, Diane? Okay, let's give you an example. Let's say Diane and I work for the same company. We're roughly at the same level. Hope you don't mind being used. She says, use me. Okay. And we're roughly the same level. She has no authority over me. I have no authority over her. Diane gets put in charge of a project. And she could use my help. And I'm in a different department because of my expertise. Comes over my work area and says, Ross, I'm put in charge of this project and I can really use your help. Will you help me? Well, I am swamped. I don't have time to help Diane on the project. But since Diane's a friend of mine and she is so nice, what do I tell her? Sure, Diane, I'll help you on that project. Well, here's what happens. Within a week, I may come to work early. Why? It's the only time I have to work on a project. Some nights I stay late. Why? That's the only time I have. And then after a couple of weeks, she's got me coming in on Saturday morning. And after the second Saturday morning, what does my wife want to know? What's going on at work? Who's Diane? And what's with all these cell phone messages, okay? All right, well, after a while, the project comes through to completion. Diane gets all sorts of accolades from upstairs. She wins an award, and she gets promoted. What have I gotten out of that so far? Except tired and in trouble at home, right? So Diane, when the smoke clears, she's feeling really good. She decides to do the right, but she thinks it's the right thing. She sends me a thank you note on personalized stationery with a special fragrance. Dear Ross, thank you so much for your help on the project. I couldn't have done it without you. All the best, Diane. If that's all I get out of it. The next time Diane comes around looking for help on a project, what am I going to tell her? I'm not going to tell her no to her face. I'm going to be a little nicer than that. Say, Diane, I would love nothing more to work on another project with you. That last one was such a kick. Coming to work early, staying late, and you were so thoughtful bringing those day-old Krispy Kremes in on Saturday morning. Oh, love to work on another project with you, but I am swamped. Why don't you talk to, what's your name? Erica. I think Erica's got some extra time. She'd love to help you. That's a no, but it's a nice no, okay? Now, if she wants the same tired old boss, Reck, to get excited about working on another project with her, who should she have sent that thank you note to? Send it to my boss. That's something I can't do for myself. And lay it on thick, okay? Dear Ross's boss, you are so fortunate to have a person like Ross Reck in your department. I mean, just think of how well off the rest of the company would be if everybody had Ross Reck's stick-to-itiveness, sense of loyalty to the company, a willingness to stay late until the work is finished and finished right, and on and on and on. And don't just send my boss a copy. Send me a copy too, and send one a couple levels up. Okay, I'm sitting in my work area. I'm kind of bent out of shape at good old Diane here, because, man, she used me. I worked my tail off. She won all the awards. I got nothing. And then in my inbox, I pull this thing out. Oh, wait, send it hard copy, not email. You can send email and backup, but give me something I can staple on my refrigerator or something like that. And I pick up this letter, and I read it. And I see who got the copies. What's starting to happen to me as I read this letter that she wrote on my behalf? Instead of being this tired, worn-out Ross Reck, I'm starting to get energized. I'm starting to come alive. And the first chance I get, I walk over to her work area. And what do I say? I say, Diane, I mean, I'm so happy for everything that happened to you as a result of this last project. You deserve everything you got. Notice I'm a big fan now. Everything you got, because you worked hard. And then I utter the magical phrase that says the pram model is working for Diane. What's that magical phrase? Is there anything I can do for you? Is there, if in the future there is a, okay, that's an example of what I call somebody standing in line waiting for a chance to do you a favor, and that's the way you want all your customers to be. Just, is there anything I can do for you? Because they're out there looking for opportunities to do something nice for you because they like you so much, okay? Okay, well, that's how we do that. Now, maintain the relationship. A couple of things we have to look at here. The way you maintain a relationship, you spend time visiting these same people when you don't ask for things. If the only time you call or call on people is when you want somebody, what do you become known as? A taker, a user, a mooch, a leech, we can go on and on with all kinds of stories like that. So spend time visiting when you don't ask for things. And if a problem shows up, what do? Even if it's not your problem. You fix it, and you fix it right, and you fix it now, okay? I have to cheat now because I forgot what example I put here. Oh, give me an example. There's a car dealership in Madison, Wisconsin. The guy's name is Zimbrick. I don't know what his first name is. This made the front page of the Wall Street Journal. What this guy does is to make sure customers don't fall through the cracks, is he offers free cab service to and from work for anybody that'll drop their car off to get serviced or repaired in the morning. Okay, which in and of itself is a nice customer service gesture. But there's a method to his madness. He has these these cab drivers trained. Okay? So let's say your name is Brittany. Okay, let's say I pick Brittany up, and she drops her car off to get serviced. Brittany jumps in my car, and I say, hey, Brittany, isn't this dealership nice? Don't they treat you like family? Don't you get the sense they care about you? And here's what's happened to Brittany. She brought her car in a month ago to get it fixed, and they didn't fix it right. Now she has to bring it back. That's inconvenient. Also, it's off warranty now. The service part manager says, no way, you're paying. Now, if they had fixed it right in the first place a month ago, she wouldn't have to pay. She says, well, you might think this is a nice bunch of people. Let me tell you what happened to me. She just spills her guts. Well, when I drop her off at work, she gives me her business card because I have to pick her up at 5 to bring her back to the dealership. As soon as she gets in the building, what do? As the cab driver, I call Mr. Zimbrick. I says, let me tell you about Brittany. Here's what happened. Blah, 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 blah. Brittany's at her desk. She's steamed. She's getting mad and really ready to badmouth the Zimbrick dealership, but she's going to wait until she gets her car back. And all of a sudden the phone rings, and guess who it is? The dealer himself. And he says, Brittany, oh, just found out what happened to you. This should never happen to anybody, especially a loyal customer like you. And since it happened and it shouldn't have, tonight when you come in to pick up your car, I will personally be here along with the technicians that worked on your car, and we're going to make sure the car is fixed to your satisfaction. And since it happened and it shouldn't have, tonight when you pick up your car, there will be no charge. Now, does this change Brittany's disposition? A great deal. So I drop her off at work. There's Mr. Zimbrick and the technicians waiting for her. They take her around, show her what they did, and in the way looking around her car, Brittany realizes that her car's been washed and cleaned on the inside. She gets in, turns on the key, and the gas tank is full. Have we lost Brittany as a customer? No. So what he does, he offers, has dinner parties for these cab drivers, really nice dinner parties, twice a year. That's all he has to do to get this kind of information. He said, I understand a dissatisfied customer never says anything to you. They just never come back and badmouth all their friends. He says, you can't afford to do that. So this was his way. Now, the other car dealerships in Madison at the time started doing this, but they didn't put the heart into the business. They went through the motions. Remember, heart changes everything. Okay? They went through the motions, and obviously it didn't work. Okay? My sister-in-law is a meat salesman, woman, whatever. And she's very good at maintaining relationships with butchers and meat managers in her territory. And what she does on Fridays, which is the busiest day in the meat department in a supermarket, because everybody's getting stuff for the weekend and all that kind of stuff, she does what she calls hi-bye calls. She calls on as many supermarkets as she can in her territory, and she walks in and she'll say, hi. Now, these guys are busy. But in case there's a problem, they're glad she's around. If she looks around, catch her next time. And they think, wow, can you believe she's there? But she didn't bug them, okay? It's the hi-bye call. She did that every Friday. And to show you how that paid off, she lost her job because the company she worked for went to an outside firm. And but she always gets picked up by another company within a week, more money and a bigger car, because she has the relationships well maintained. Well, she got picked up by a company that sold Cumberland Gap hams, the same ham that you get from honey-baked hams. And this was mid-October. The year before her territory, they sold 1 trailer load of hams during the Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's holiday season. She doesn't have a whole lot of time to get this going. So she put these plastic gloves on, grabbed samples of this ham, and went on her high-buys, and she said, hi, you got to try this. And all these butchers and meat managers opened their mouth like little birdies in a nest. She stuck it in their mouth. They bit down and, wow, this is good, because they trusted her. Because of that, in her relationship, she had, that same year, they sold 10 trailer loads of ham in that same territory. That's the power of having your relationships well maintained. Now, so far so good. All this stuff sounds easy. It is easy. Here's the problem. You can forget to do it, okay? I used to think that knowledge plus good intentions equals success. No, knowledge plus good intentions plus execution equals success. I visited the #1 Buick dealer in North America for his customer service index a few years ago. His name is Glenn Bugie of Glenn Bugie Buick in Lansing, Michigan. He also now has Glenn Bugie Ford in Lansing, Michigan. And I saw his picture on the front page of the business section of the newspaper when I was in Lansing at the time, and so I decided to call him. I said, can I come out and visit you? He said, sure, I'll give you an hour. So I went out there. I said, what do you do at this dealership that makes you so good? He says, we don't do anything else at this dealership that any other dealership could do if they wanted to. The only difference is we do it. I said, oh, good. I tried to change the subject. He grabbed my arm. He says, wait a minute. I can tell you don't get it. I said, what is it I don't get? He said, every single one of my employees has been handpicked by me. I hired them all. They're good people. They've been here forever. They're loyal. He says, they've been trained up one side, down the other when it comes to delivering world-class customer service. You could ask any one of my employees in any one of our departments, what's the secret to world-class customer service? They can give you the answer. He said, you could give them pencil and paper tests on how to deliver world-class customer service, and every one of my employees will get 100%. You can give them lie detector tests, he told me, and they'll all pass them. Do you do these things? Yes, we do. He said, here's the deal. Even at that, I have to set every one of my departments down a minimum of once a week to remind them. Because if I don't remind them, what happens? They don't do it. It's not that they don't want to. They forget about it. They start doing more and more things that are important to them, fewer and fewer things that are important to the customer, and just like that, he says, you've lost your competitive edge. So he had to have meetings once a week. I said, well, that's really interesting. Then I went to Ritz-Carlton, Naples, Florida. I couldn't believe the level of service. I said, man, this is great. I finished my program, and I went for a walk along the Gulf of Mexico. Then I came back and sat at the bar by the swimming pool. And this gentleman, a bartender, dressed in a love boat uniform, you know, white shorts, white shirt, black and gold epaulets, you know. Australian, no less. So he had an accent. He said, sir, may I help you? I said, yes, I'd like a Manhattan cocktail straight up, please. He said, oh, sir, I'd love to help you, but I've no cherries to garnish your drink. I said, I don't eat the cherries, I just like the drink. He's, okay, I'll mix it up for you. Well, just then, his boss walked by and overheard the conversation. You could tell he was a boss because he had black shorts, okay? That was the uniform. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, sir, I will get you some cherries. I said, don't bother, I don't need them anyway. Well, the guy talked to me, the bartender, and shook the drink up, poured it in a glass, handed it to me. Just as I was ready to take a drink out of it, over my shoulder came one of these plastic cocktail swords with 4 cherries on it, plunk. I got goosebumps. I look around me, and there stands the boss with his gallon container of cherries with the lid in his hand, smiling, like, I got you, you know? And I said, okay, I got to talk to you. I said, your company does not pay you enough money to work this hard. What drives you? Well, he thought he had the answer, and he had part of it. He says, opportunity for advancement and knowing you work for the absolute best in the world at what you do. Well, it sounded good to me. I got home that week, picked up a business periodical, had an article about Ritz-Carlton. And you can go to their website. It turns out, and see this, it turns out they have 20 principles of delivering world-class customer service. And they're really neat principles. Every day, this is the reminder now, they have a stand-up meeting of all employees at the beginning of every shift. And they go over one of the 20 principles plus the thought of the week. Next day they go to number 2. Now when they get through all 20, do they say, we're done, we know it? Now this is what gives them their edge. They start over again. And they start over again. There's not many companies that do this. So 18 times a year, they go through these 20 principles of delivering world-class customer service. That's why today you walk in any Ritz-Carlton, I mean, you're just going to be blown away with that service. I mean, because they're constantly bombarded with reminders. So you have to remind people to do it. You can remind them in a kind way. It takes 2-3 minutes a day. One of the things I was giving a program in Montreal, and I was harping on how you have to have a reminder system, or you're not going to do this. And finally, one fellow in the class, he was a Sikh from India. And he said, why don't you remind us once a week with an email? And I said, you know, people always ask me to write a newsletter. Oh, man, easiest thing to start and hardest thing to keep going. And that's a lot of work. But an email with 2 to 4 sentences, 3-5 sentences maybe, I can do that once a week. And so I did. It's been running now for 10 years. So if you go to my website, rossreck.com, on the front page, you can sign up for this free reminder. And every Tuesday morning, my smiling face will show up in your inbox with something that either you already know about or you forgot about, but it reminds you in a very nice way. And my wife came up with a tagline for the thing from a British author named Samuel Johnson, who was in the late 1800s. It said, it goes like this: people need to be reminded far more often than they need to be taught. We already know what to do. We just need to be reminded. That's the secret, okay? So, write her down. I like that.
That's write her down.
I'll give you one last example that ties the whole thing together, and then we're going to shut it down, okay? Now let's go back to Joe Girard. Remember I said 1,425 guys, 1 year, 65% repeat, 35 referral. Okay, when this came out, everybody said, Joe, what's your secret? He said, there are no secrets. You just have to do certain things right. He says, number 1, I sell Chevrolets. Who buys Chevrolets? In his own words, it was your average Joe and Josephine. People go to work every day. And he says, you know what? Once you get to know your average Joe and Josephine, you find out that they don't want to pay, and once you get to know, it means you got the relationship. They don't want to pay the cheapest price for a car they possibly can. Oh, they want to pay a fair price. They don't want to feel they're being ripped off. But the most important thing, the average Joe Josephine, they want to buy a car from a salesperson they can trust. That's it, okay? So Joe wouldn't let your office, I'll come back to that in a minute. He says, and then after the sale, here's the transaction. Okay, I'll go back here. Joe, first thing he would do, he says, I stand in front of my product as well as behind it, which meant before you could buy a car from Joe, what did you have to buy first? You got to buy him first. He would not let you out of his office until he turned you into a friend, okay? Then after you bought the car from Joe, and you had a problem with the service department, who went to bat for you? Joe. And if Joe agreed with you, he would take it all the way up to chain of command Marola Chevrolet. If you didn't get any satisfaction there, he'd take it all the way up to chain of command Chevrolet, and then all the way up to chain of command at General Motors. Usually he got satisfaction somewhere, and if that didn't work, guess what he did? He took out his own billfold, and he put the difference down on the counter in front of the customer and says, I'm sorry this happened, I hope it doesn't happen again. How many times do you have to do that before everybody in Detroit knows about it? And not too many times. And everybody in Detroit was talking about Joe Girard. Yes, it's a big place with a lot of opportunity. But there's also a lot of Chevy dealerships in Detroit, so you got that going against you too, okay? So, any questions on the pram model? I detect fever pitched enthusiasm, don't I? Well, you got those little cards there to take with you, okay? It's got the steps of the pram model on the back side. Okay, there's one last slide.
Hey, Ross,
Yes?
Will you say the writer downer again?
Oh, which one was it?
There were so many.
Okay, people need to be reminded far more often than they need to be taught. They already know. People need to be reminded more often than they need to be taught. Samuel Johnson is the person's name. Now, if you want the pram model to work for you and give you Joe Girard kind of results, you have to operate in the context of three basic factors. I call these factors that differentiate people who get average results from people who get outstanding results, and they are balance, integrity, and patience. Okay, you look at the pram model. What do you notice about the relative size of each of the four steps? They're equal, which implies what about the relative level of importance?
Equal.
Yeah, you can't do one and ignore the other three. You can't do three and ignore one. It's a system. It hangs together. You've got to do all four. I tell people, look at this as a baseball diamond. You hit a home run, you want to count. How many bases do you have to touch? All four. And here's the payoff base. This is home plate. You've done all the hard work here. This is the cash-in place. This is the writer downer. This is where you get your repeat and referral business. This is where you turn your customers into your sales force. Don't forget that fourth step, because everybody else does. And if you don't forget it, you'll stand out like a sore thumb. And all the people will flock to you. The second one is integrity. The pram model is not a tool in the classical sense. Because tools are like saws. You turn it on when you need it, you ignore it until you need it again. You're dealing with people that don't stand for it. The pram model is a way of life. You have to live this model. That's the bad news. The good news is, this is the kind of person everybody wants to deal with. Okay? And finally, patience. Did Joe Girard start out selling 1,425 cars his first year?
You got fired.
Excuse me?
You got fired from his first.
Yeah, and his first year selling from Rolls-Royce, you know how many cars he sold? 350. That's still pretty good for a rookie. He described himself as a 35-year-old born loser. But he practiced this method. You know how many cars he sold the year before he sold 1,425? 1,391. In 10 years, he sold 13,000 cars, all by himself. Because what this step does here, he is really good about doing his maintenance. You know how he maintained his relationships? He had 13,000 names on his customer list.
Yeah.
He sent a postcard out once a month to everybody on the list. January, Happy New Year from Joe Girard, Marola Chevrolet. At the bottom says, P.S. I like you. Remember that? February, you got Valentine's Day, pick one.
He get them custom made too.
Yeah, and then you pick up 1 month out of the year, he sent everybody a birthday card in the same month.
Yep.
Okay, that was, well, 1 out of 12 times, that's not too bad. And he says, the people got a kick out of him because they were intrusive. I talk to people, my car salesperson calls me once a month. Well, he's going through the motions. There's no heart in it, okay? This guy had heart, but it didn't intrude. But here's the deal. What's your first name again?
Robert.
Robert. Let's say Robert gets one of those cards. He got the green one for St. Patrick's Day, okay? And it's Friday night, and he's going to a party from work. And then, you know, of course, he worked for a car place. Saves him he didn't work for a car place. And somebody like Diane comes up and says, you know, I'm thinking about buying a new car, but I just hate the sales process. Because, man, they harass you. They just... And since he just got that card, Joe Girard's name just came across his eyes that day. And he says, Diane, tell you what, you go to Morola Chevrolet over there at 7.5 in Gratiot, Detroit, and ask for Joe Girard and tell him I sent you. And tell Joe I'll be by to see him another month myself. Okay, that's how we kept the relationships going, okay? And the last thing there is, I said there's patience, yeah, that's right. So, here's the deal. Is there an acid test to know if the plan model is working for me? Obviously there is, or I wouldn't raise the question. Yes, there is. When the amount of sales that you transact as a result of repeat and referral business, when that amount begins to noticeably grow, that should tell you that you are beginning to master the plan model, which means you are also beginning to turn your customers into a sales force. And that is the way to become a highly successful salesperson and still be able to enjoy life at the same time. With that, yes, question?
Did Joe Girard pay people $100 for sending referral or not? You just get them off organically.
I think he might have thrown out there a $50 thing back then. But he really didn't have to, but he did because he just was okay. But that's not how he got him. I mean, people just really genuinely liked the guy. They just all wanted to hang with him, you know. And there's a Ford dealership in Scottsdale called 5-Star Ford. I'll never forget, our Aerostar was ready to break down, right as the new models were coming out. And so my wife called all the dealerships, including Tetra Earnhardt and those guys, and the guy, 5-Star, was $5,000 cheaper than anybody else. So she says, let's go out and see this guy. So we did, and a mile from the dealership, our car quit. They had to pull into a convenience store parking lot. Call the guy, he comes out and looks at the car for trade-in value, you know. I mean, I'm at his mercy. Well, he didn't try to take advantage of us, it didn't seem like. And everything went cool, and I noticed as he's waiting on us, he's handing out a set of keys to this person, this paper. He's got a line of people standing outside his office, but he's focusing on us. And I went to the gal, the receptionist, and I said, what's with this guy? He seems like a really nice guy. And she says, you don't know how fortunate you are to even be dealing with him. I said, why? She said, well, he doesn't work the show. Because I said, why not? He said, he doesn't have to. All this business is repeat and refill. You just happen to catch him with an open window this day, or you would never even know who this guy is. And he had all the business, and he made it look easy. I think that's just kind of cool. Anyone else have a question? Well, with that, I'll say thank you very much. You've been wonderful. I enjoyed doing it. Thank you.